Comics use statistical process control? Answer, yes. Creation of comic books is a process and as such can be controlled statistically. What is the measure of quality for a comic book? You know, and a lot of the stuff that we're looking at here, you know, we're taking units in inches, you know, it's a nice sort of standardized measurement. But what do you measure
You can
comic
do it. I
books
don't want to
in?
do it.
Answer?
Far too
Interesting.
lazy. Interesting.
Which is a word. I thought I made it up, but spell check didn't squiggly line it. It's a real word. Question: how does one measure interestingness? Answer: the Carlson. Brief digression here. The Carlson is a real scientific unit. It was created by real scientists after years of research. I'm not making this up. Carlson was named after Chester Carlson, the inventor of the Xerox. The Carlson scale. At 0 Carlsons, human life is unsustainable. You will literally die of boredom. At 1,000 Carlsons, or 1 kilo Carlson, water. Does any of this have to do with anything at all? We're getting there. Stop asking so many questions. Recall from earlier that we are monitoring the process of creating comic books. In order to begin, we must first define a tolerance or spec limit for this process. As a customer of Marvel Comics, I have taken the liberty of defining the spec limits of interestingness that I am willing to pay for. In addition to the fact that I am a customer of Marvel Comics, I am further qualified to define the spec limits of interestingness for 3 reasons. I have an embarrassingly large collection of comic books, and as such, I am very familiar with comic books as a whole. Number 2, I am extremely good at having opinions. Number 3, God told me I had good taste. I don't know if you guys are really religious. I don't want to get into it, but to be fair, tolerance for this process is 100 to 150 Carlsons. Top scientists theorize that at fewer than 100 Carlsons, I may begin to contemplate either suicide or a life of crime. At more than 150 Carlsons, I begin to become so infatuated with Marvel Comics that I lose what few social graces I have and become a pod person whose life is dominated by a form of entertainment that has no bearing on real life whatsoever. Selected 30 issues at random. These issues span several titles and were published in the last 5 years. After spending an embarrassing amount of time reading said issues, I assigned a value of interestingness and plotted them on an X-bar and R chart. At this point, we fell below the spec limit, and after going to Walgreens to steal a pair of fingernail clippers and a Heath bar, I returned to read 2 more issues, and then decided that since I had already fallen below the spec limit, Marvel Comics failed, and I wasn't going to continue. For comparison's sake, consider these sample graphs generated from issues from the 1960s and 1980s from Marvel Comics. As you can see, these are within control. In the 60s, we have a CPK of 1.4, and the X-bar lies right at 127, which is very comfortable and I find quite acceptably interesting. In the 80s, the CPK went down to 1.37, but things were still going good, and there was actually an X-bar of 130, which was interesting. Finally, compare Marvel's results with this study of Dark Horse Comics titled Hellboy, which is written and drawn mostly by Mike Mignola. Possibly, Mike Mignola's comic-making process generates no variation. Further evidence that Mike Mignola is perfect. Conclusion: Marvel Comics does not use statistical process control and pretty much sucks now. Fortunately, their movies are pretty good, and inexplicably, I still buy their comic books.